23 minutes, just to check to make sure that doesn't stop. All right, so last time we talked about the tube there. And essentially we have a different temperature today. What was the temperature yesterday?
22.1 degrees Celsius.
Same there, so we use the exact same speed of sound. So good formula, 331.3 times the square root, that's meters per second, times the square root of 1 plus the
Degrees in Celsius.
degrees in Celsius over 273.15. And still, and I'm gonna turn that off before it changes, and I feel like we have to adjust. All right, so what was the speed?
344.442.
All right, so we had, I know that the speed is also equal to the frequency times the wavelength. So we found the speed through independent means. And so we're trusting that that is correct. And we're trying to find the frequency. So the frequency is the speed divided by the wavelength. And what was the length here, did I say last time?
That was half a week.
No. What was the value?
Oh,
81 centimeters.
I think it was more than that.
it was
83.9 centimeters, 0.839
yeah,
meters.
0.839
Yep.
839 meters.
meters. All right. So for the first one, our wavelength is twice that. 1.678 meters. For the second one, the wavelength is that length right there, because we have one wave. And so wavelength is 0.839. And for the one down here, I don't think we actually did that calculation.
2/3. 3/3.
2/3 of that,
Yeah.
which is
I was saying, point 8 9.
About 0.559 endless threes.
559
3.
meters. I also want to point out something I did not point out last time. So we have our first harmonic here, half of a wave in this particular case. The second harmonic, it's 2 times what we first had. The third harmonic is 3 times what we had. That actually is a pattern that maintains. It also works for the vibrating string with the two fixed ends, or any wave with 2 fixed ends. And it's also going to apply for the 1 fixed, 1 free end, which we'll do after this. In those cases, the first one will be some value, the next one is going to be 3 times that. So for the case of the 1 fixed, 1 free, it's the first harmonic, then the third harmonic, then the fifth harmonic. Only the odd harmonics exist. But hopefully I'll remember to point that out again when we get there.
So the fifth harmonic would be
1 and
1/3.
No, it'd be
The
1
fifth
and
harmonic
a
would be
half.
5 times whatever the first harmonic is.
It'd be 1 and a half, wouldn't it?
No, I mean the wavelength will be 1/3
It'd be 1 and 1/2. 1 and a half.
or
We'll
half.
get there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then, so we figured for the first harmonic, the frequency of 344.442, and a sad marker that I think I just brought out yesterday. Divide by a wavelength of 1.6, we'll put a little 1 down there to represent the first harmonic, 1.678 meters. And this was 200 something, 202, I forget what it was.
It was 205.269.
Hertz.
Yep.
And we played that note, and then we tried to play it on the tube here, and we were not able to because the first harmonic has to be swung so slowly, we don't develop enough pressure difference to actually get air to come through at the right speed in order to actually hear it. So the second harmonic is the first one we actually hear. And so the frequency for the second harmonic, 344.442, divided by 0.839, and 410.538.
Yep.
And that brought us to the point where we were trying to figure out how do you actually know if they're the same other than just by hearing it? Because the timbre, never quite sure how it's actually pronounced, the Timbre when dealing with music,
What about
how it's pronounced, timbre.
TIM?
Talking about like timber, like a tree falling.
No, wrong kind.
Not the tempo.
TIMBRE, that's timber.
I'm pretty sure that's the way it's spelled. Anyway, the sound that music, the quality of music that comes from the actual instrument, that the plastic tube is different than a speaker. And so there's gonna be a certain difference in quality there of hearing the notes. But then we talked about the fact that we hear beats. So if I played this frequency at the same time I did this, if they are close, if they're spot on, then it's really not a physics demonstration. If it's spot on, then you would not hear any difference. It would just sound louder than it did before. If it's a little bit off, you start to hearing beats and you get that wah-wah sound. So let's see how close we get. Because I don't think we actually, we ended with just what beats were. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure these are off. All right. So we are predicting 410.538.
It's timbre, that's what it's.
Pronounced timbre?
Yeah,
It is an I though, right?
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's the sound we're trying to hit. All right, now let's do it at the same time.
I can barely hear the speaker.
You hear that slight trill,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then without this thing going. I definitely hear a trill when they're playing at the same time.
It's definitely quieter than it was yesterday. Yeah.
Definitely what?
Quieter, I can barely hear the speaker.
I can be able to hear this though.
Now I can hear the drill.
Okay. So at least we're close enough in the ballpark in order to be able to hear something. I mean, if they're far enough off, and I didn't do that last time, so let me play the two that are far off. I'll keep the 410 going, and then I'll throw in a 200. It just sounds like two notes to me.
Yeah, me too.
If I go to 300, still sounds like two notes to me. Nick, you seem skeptical there. It sounds different to you?
No, I was
Okay.
just listening.
Okay. If I go 400, well, there's definitely a trill there. At least I'm hearing it.
Yeah, I hear it.
Mhm.
That sounds like the tube. That's what the tube sounds like on its own.
Ah,
But that might just because it's not a constant sound.
Yeah, I can't swing it really at a constant angular velocity.
Right.
All right. So hopefully at least it gives some credence that, there's some validity to what we're doing. We'll see what the trill sounds like on the third harmonic. And I picked up the one I didn't want to use. If I mash it hard enough. So the third harmonic, we have 344.442 meters per second. That's the speed of sound, divided by our wavelength of 0.5593 repeating meters.
615.808 hertz.
At least this is an easier harmonic to produce on the tube. Stop that, and stop that, all right. So 615.808. Should know by now, 615.80. Typing issues. All right, so that's the frequency that we're predicting.
Pretty close.
I can hear a little bit of trill. The trill is not as noticeable as it is on the first one, but I'm hearing something. I don't know if you are hearing the little bit of a trill going.
I can't hear the trill because I think it's just a little bit off. I just hear the two notes as two different notes, but they are pretty close.
Okay, so far enough away to sound like two notes, not close enough.
Mm-hmm.
And if we kept going, we would get a little bit farther and farther off. There's some extra factor in here that obviously needs to be taken into account. And then there's an oscillation in the sound just because of where this thing is. You get more of an oscillation if I spun, I believe, because I've never been on that side of it. So this verse, does it sound the same to you or different?
It sounds the same.
Same.
Yeah, it kind of sounds the same.
No, I hear a difference.
What you hear?
Like whenever it goes behind you, it kind of like, the sound dampens a little bit, and then when it comes back around, it gets loud again.
So you're saying I have a big head? Is that what I hear?
No.
Some days. So that could just be the muffling effect from there's an obstacle in the way. All right, so two free ends. We have two notes there. Let's take a look at two with one free end and our demonstration for that. Oh, any questions before we tackle that? All right. This is not the one I want because it doesn't have water in it. One of these. This one over here. All right. So basically, it's a water tube. Got a tuning fork here. Maybe you can hear that.
Yeah.
Yes, Ronald, you're the one who's probably going to be at the most difficulty. Actually, before we do this, let's talk about sound and hearing. When I was growing up, my dad would have the TV on and have the volume down really low. But I knew the TV was on because there was a high-pitched sound that the TV always made. And, the days of tubes and TVs. And I would say, hey, Dad, you need to turn the TV down. It's on too loud. and he turned the volume down a little bit more. I couldn't hear the sound at all. All I could hear was that high-pitched sound that the TV was making. Now, what actually neither of us knew at that time, was the fact that because of his age, he was losing some of the higher registers. So he was starting, the amount of sound, the higher pitched sounds, he was having a harder time hearing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play a sound that's gonna start from 0, which we won't be able to hear, and then it's gonna go up to 20,000 hertz, which is beyond the hearing of most people.
Yeah, upper limit of human hearing.
So when it gets to the point where you can't hear it anymore, just sort of raise your hand. I'm gonna come, somewhere around 8,000 hertz, I'm gonna lose it because I got tinnitus. And then I'm gonna hear it again somewhere around 10 or 11,000 hertz. And then I'm gonna lose it somewhere around 12,000 hertz. So I got a range in there that it just sounds like the background noise in my head. Yeah, that went to be 20,000. Linear sweep. Let's see, volume. Let's make that 100. All right, apparently it doesn't want to actually, it's not the one I want then. No. Ah, cleverly marked hearing test. Here we go. I'm hoping you can all hear that. $4,000 hertz. About 6,000 hertz. I'm out.
It's still going.
I'm out.
I just stopped.
All right. I can hear it again. We're at about 12,000, 13,000. I can't hear it anymore.
Yeah, I can. I can still hear it.
I hear it now.
It's gone.
Yep. All right, and 20,000. Now, a couple of years ago, I was going to do a demonstration with this for the class, and I was just playing around with it before class started, and I had it at somewhere around 15,000 hertz, which I can't hear. And then I forgot to hit stop. So I'm starting class, and one of the students goes, "Does anyone else hear that high-pitched noise?" And then it took me a moment, but then I realized that I had forgotten to turn this off.
Is it still on?
No, at this point it is not on. You might be hearing just your brain is still tuned to that. You're still hearing it? Yeah, it goes away, at least it usually does.
It sounds like tinnitus.
But the one advantage that you have of getting older and losing some of those higher registers is that if you want to annoy younger people, just put it on a frequency you can't hear, crank it up. Yeah, it's probably the pettiest thing I've done. Oh well, I haven't done it in a while. All right, so we're gonna hit this. The frequency of this one is 512 hertz. Because if you hear that, sounds like 512.
Yeah, I hear it.
I don't know what 5 sounds like.
Now, the reason I believe it's 512, we could actually test and get a microphone here and do a plot, but it says 512 on there, so I'm gonna trust that. So the tuning fork is vibrating back and forth 512 times a second. So you don't really see it vibrate, at least I don't see it vibrating, but I know it's vibrating some because it's hitting air molecules which hit other air molecules, the basic kind of pressure waves that occur, and then it hits my ear. I have the tuning fork oriented this way, so up and down, or sideways, however, this way, so that we get this, because it's vibrating like this, it's pushing air molecules down, hitting the water down here, and then it's reflected back up. This is the fixed end where the water is. This is the free end where it's the open air. So before we get into our predictions, or before we get into the experiment, let's actually take a look at our predictions. So, fixed end, free end. How's that going to be reflected in my drawing? What does the fixed end look like when I draw my standing wave?
It's gonna have a node, it's gonna start at a node.
Mm.
And the other end?
It's gonna be down to peak amplitude. Now,
Now I was thinking, because, when I did this, I'm basically gonna do the equivalent for this, just not that. So I will have a node here. What will the other end be?
Oh,
Open.
In terms of nodes, it's not.
anti-node.
anti-
Yeah, anti-node, working on the vocabulary. I'm gonna go vertical here, just because that's vertical. So the simplest one will look like that. Some length L. How many waves is that?
That's a half wave.
It's a quarter.
What's a quarter of one?
It's a quarter. Just remember, a full wave looks like that, and basically, we're just looking at this. So L is equal to a quarter of a wave. So the wavelength is 4 times whatever that length is. So this is the first harmonic. The next harmonic, again, we add a half wave every single time we go to the next harmonic.